I have zero plan going into this video. Um, so we're going to just see how it goes. So I have a plan on doing a video in a couple of weeks about defining your why with homeschooling. And so that is coming. And so this is kind of like a prelude to that, as I have been kind of floundering a little bit, which is surprising to me with how far we are in our homeschool journey. So I come on here and I try to give counsel based off of the things that I have learned, and I have learned a lot. But the Lord continues to show me that I don't know everything, and it is, I believe, His way of keeping me humble so that I don't continue to just get a huge, enormous, big head on like, oh, I have all of this stuff figured out. I was talking to my husband yesterday, and I literally told him whenever it came to like homeschooling high school, I just wanted to quit because I was getting so overwhelmed and so frustrated because nothing is panning out the way that I wanted it to. Nothing is working quite the way that I thought it was going to. The curriculum choices that I made, a lot of them I like, but there's quite a few of them that I am just not at peace with, and they aren't working the way that I want them to work. And I am circling back to my why with homeschooling a little bit. When I first started homeschooling many moons ago, I was very much that I wanted to give my oldest child, who was in second grade at the time, an education that was supportive of who he is as a person, because the school system had failed him utterly, completely failed him. Um, he was so bright and so smart, like one of the smartest kids that I knew, one of the smartest kids that most people knew. And how he was struggling so intensely, it was frustrating for me. And so I knew that he just needed more attention than he was getting in school. He had had some good teachers, but overall, just the system in general wasn't supportive for a kid who had the needs that he had. And so as he has gone on into upper grades, I had this picture, I guess, in my head of that I wanted to support him in a way that would make him overcome everything and make him quote unquote normal, whatever that means. And had lost a lot of that trying to consider him as a person and consider his strengths and his weaknesses and tailoring the education to the child rather than making the child fit into the education. A lot of the things that I started doing, especially this year, I was once again treating him like, you know, cut and paste off of what is your typical 11th grader supposed to be doing and how should he be doing it, instead of considering the fact that this is my extremely intelligent, creative child who just he absorbs so much information. If it's in audio form, if he can listen to it, he just grabs so much, and it's amazing to me how much stuff that he retains. He's very artistic and articulate, and he is very well spoken, and he is just able to communicate what he's learned very eloquently, and I believe that that is a gifting that he has. And I'm over here like we have to read all of these books and we have to write it all in this way. And not that I don't think that kids who have, different learning abilities shouldn't write papers. I believe they should write papers. But, that isn't the only medium by which that we can test information or the intake and the retention of information. And so I was sitting here and I was so overwhelmed with everything and it wasn't working. And I finally just stopped and I asked myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? For what reason? I started stepping back and looking at my child as a person again, and started thinking, if I wasn't trying to trying to fit me in the box because I want to be a classical homeschool, if I wasn't trying to say, oh, well, we are a classical homeschool, what would I do for him? And I started looking at it and seeing that I would give him mostly audio and visual. So a lot of video based, a lot of audiobooks for the books that I want him to read because everything's on audio now and he could listen to it. Have him do a lot of verbal narration again and written narration, sprinkled in, still doing papers, but it the program that we do is very supportive for him. It works very well for him and he does very well in it. So we do essentials in writing, by the way, if you haven't watched my curriculum picks. I started backtracking and realized I don't have to prepare him in the way that he would be prepared in a normal school setting. He could actually be better prepared in a way that is more respectful of who he is as a person and how he learns. Because at the end of the day, my heart for my children is to love the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to go into the world and to show the love of Jesus to the world, and to be dominion takers, to be world changers, to be a light in this world of darkness. That's what I want for them. And I want them to be the people that other people look at and say, this is what a Christian is. Not in a, oh, it makes me look good because they're a good Christian, but because I want them to love God so much with all of their heart that they just want to live lives that glorify Him. And I want them to embrace the calling that He places on their life, whatever that may be. And who am I to put a limitation on what that calling looks like? And also, God created them in this way. God created my oldest to be this particular way with these particular needs and this particular learning style. So, do I not think that He will use that to glorify Himself, and He will create this opportunity for him within whatever calling He places on his heart? He knows who he is. God knows who my son is, and He knows him intimately because He has called him to Himself. And so I have to trust that if God has given him this particular learning style, then that's good. It is a good thing. And it is wrong for me to say, I want to do this way. And so therefore, I'm going to ignore how God has created you and how you learn best so that I can fit us into this particular mold that makes me feel good about our homeschool. All of that to say, I'm taking a step back when it comes to, not here. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still posting videos twice a week. But whenever it comes to trying to say that we are any type of a way when it comes to homeschooling, I think that I'm done. I think that I'm done trying to say, oh, we're a classical homeschool, we're a Charlotte Mason homeschool. We're a what works for each child homeschool. And that may mean I have some children who love to read and they could do a fully literature based curriculum. And I have certain children that would absolutely hate that. I have textbooky kids, and I have kids who they can sit and read all day and they would be happy. And then I have boys that would love nothing more than to go climb the trees. But everybody loves a good story, and so those won't go anywhere. And the heart behind the Charlotte Mason method of respecting children as persons and trying to, tailor their education to the person, that is ultimately my heart for all of my kids. So I am going to do an update. I was thinking that this video might be that, but I don't think so. I think this is just going to be, let's just talk, because I want to do a full update video on how we're doing it. And we just started. I've made some changes. I'm really happy with them. I've actually included my son in them and pulled him in to get his input and stuff. And so I'm very happy with what we're doing. And this is not me stepping back from saying your child needs a legitimate education. I'm still not pro life schooling or unschooling. But there's more than one way to do things. You don't have to just stick to one method. And I feel like you really shouldn't. If you're dealing with people, you're not dealing with cogs in a machine. It feels almost like legalism that you kind of run into in the homeschooling world and the gatekeepers of certain methods, because we say in order to be Charlotte Mason, you have to do it this way. And I do agree with that. It's like if you're going to be a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, you have to do it the way Charlotte Mason did it. However, I don't think any of us maybe should necessarily be one way, because in actuality, all of our children are different and we all homeschool. That's one of the reasons why I believe that we homeschool, to give our children an excellent education, I would hope, but also because we don't want to just have them be a cog in the machine and go to a school where everybody has to do it the same way. So, why are we going to bring our children home and then say, you also have to do it the same way as these 3, 4, 5 other people that are doing it? I think when we take a step back and we look at our children individually and see who they are as persons, then we can start to tailor their education to them in a way that they can thrive. So I'm also not changing curriculum on most things. For my oldest, I'm not changing, I'm more adapting. And for some of my other kids, I haven't changed, I have just adapted. And I think that's the beauty of, as the longer that you homeschool, you start to learn that the curriculum is really just a guide. One of the things that I have started doing is I know that there are certain points that I want my children to get to by the end of the school year. And so I know that this particular child is struggling in maybe spelling and this one in reading. And so therefore, that's going to be one of my goals for the end of the year. And how we get there might look a little bit different. And we're going to use the curriculum as the guide, but there's some things that I might change. For example, and I'm going to get more into this in my update, we are using writing and rhetoric with my second son. But because spelling is such a struggle and he is becoming resentful of the writing process at this point, we are focusing this year mainly on spelling. So, how we are making that accommodation is that he is dictating anytime he has any writing that he has to do that is like a paragraph, a summary, or if he has to do an amplification, he is just dictating and I am typing it out and printing it out for him so that he is getting the experience of doing the work, but I am taking off the hard part that is giving him that block because it's unrelated to his writing. Making that accommodation and starting to really step back and see, is this where I want to focus my energy on? And I wish I had been wiser in this whenever I was a younger homeschooler because there were so many things that I really pushed where I could have just written it for them, had them do it verbally and written it into the book for them because they had gotten to a point that maybe their hand was tired or there was just a struggle, and kind of making accommodations in a way that it didn't affect whether or not they actually got the information or they were learning. It just was respectful of the fact that maybe their hand hadn't gained strength enough, or maybe they are struggling in an area like with spelling and they needed to focus on spelling, and the having to think about how to spell the words and remember your sentence and continue the track of what you're trying to get to at the end of your writing. That's just too many thoughts in one little boy's head and he just needs a little bit of help. It doesn't have to be all one way. It doesn't have to be so stringent in this one methodology or just even this one practice in general. And so anyway, those are just my thoughts that have been kind of floating around in my head, and I thought that maybe it would be an encouragement to somebody. Maybe somebody needs to hear that. Your children are people. They are little people with strengths, with weaknesses that they are going to probably carry with them into adulthood. There are just some things in us that are inherent, and you can try to train certain things out of children by teaching them good habits and correcting them for really bad things, but for the most part they're just quirks. A lot of these things that we get so frustrated with as homeschool moms, they're just quirks about them that they will probably not lose, that they will probably keep into adulthood. So it's okay. It's okay to make an adjustment and to teach them. It teaches them in a way that they can make an adjustment for themselves as they get older. That's, I was having a conversation with my oldest son, is that if he were to go into college, it would be really good for him to get like a Speechify app to pay for that subscription, because then he could, any textbook he had, he could take pictures of, or he could use the app that he could get it from in an audio form, so that it would accommodate what he needs, and different things like that. It helps them as they grow to be able to see that their quirks make them unique, but not bad, and not even necessarily weird, just different. And that different is good oftentimes. So, anyway, I'm sorry this was super chatty. Thank you if you've made it this far. If you like homeschooling content, then you can feel free to subscribe. If this video was encouraging for you in any way, please give it a like. Don't forget that I always have my Instagram handle up in the top left hand corner, right hand corner for me, left hand corner for you. We should be back to regular scheduled programming next week. So until then, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.